A big thanks to Dave and Spirent, a MEF-authorized certification test provider, for kicking off the show with a look at the need for security certification and community involvement, and the crucial role MEF is playing in both. A lot of work up ahead to make our data more secure, but first, I do have another confession. I don't have to worry about my social security number being stolen, like at all. My credit score is 12. 12. Okay, it's time to turn our attention to the Analysts Corner. Stan Hubbard, Senior Director of Research and Analyst Relations with MEF, recently interviewed Patrick Donegan, founder and principal analyst of HardenStance, to get his take on the biggest security threats to and their impact on telecom operators. HardenStance provides consulting services, public speaking services, and analyst reports on cybersecurity risk and solutions across the telecom sector and broader enterprise markets. Patrick, Stan, welcome. Over to you.
Welcome, Patrick. It's great to have you here today. You know, security is one of the hottest topics in the industry. What do you believe are the biggest cybersecurity threats that telecom operators face today?
Well, thanks, Stan. Nice to be here. I guess really where telecom operators come from, their history, the last 20 plus years, if you will, or many decades, is one of focusing on securing voice calls in transit. This is the core expertise, the core security fundamentals of telcos. They've always done that very well, and they continue to do that extremely well. The cybersecurity challenges that evolved over the last, 10, 15, 20 years are a completely different type of cybersecurity challenge. They are the challenge of protecting data and especially protecting that data at rest. And that's a fundamentally different thing. So whereas telcos have done tremendously well in terms of their traditional capabilities in security, when it comes to securing data at rest, telcos have done no better or worse than anybody else these last few years. It seems like barely a week or so goes by without some telco reporting some data breach or another, right? So, in terms of that core function, protection of data at rest, telcos are no better or worse than any other organization. And frankly, most of industry is kind of letting its customers down with that's concerned. The important aspect of that, I think, is that you don't protect data at rest by using the traditional telecom sector protections. You don't protect data at rest purely by following 3GPP or ITF standards. You don't protect data at rest purely by following GSMA guidelines. You protect data at rest in substantial part by the practice of enterprise security, which is the exact same security that other organizations have to use as well. So I think that's the fundamental thing that I wanted to get across today. And I have some slides, or one slide I want to talk to, but did you want to come back with something else first? Or?
Yeah. I'd like to bring up that slide and maybe talk through some
absolutely.
of the, some of the biggest attacks or some of the biggest concerns that companies have about the cybersecurity threat today.
So if you look at that slide, this just depicts the four domains, if you will, of a telco's technology environment. That bottom right-hand corner is the It's the domain that most telcos or most telco employees think about when they think about cybersecurity. They think about the telecom infrastructure and the importance of securing that. But if you look down the left-hand side at some very high-profile attacks that are listed there, this is where most of the pain has been felt by telcos in enterprise security breaches that have resulted in the compromise of customer data from the enterprise side of the house. So if you look first of all at the Excellion breach, Singtel was one of the victims of that data breach of enterprise software. If you look at the SolarWinds attack, FireEye reported that some telcos were among the victims of the SolarWinds breach. If you look at the SoftCell campaign, that was a campaign believed to be carried out by Chinese advanced threat players, and that gained access to a number of telecom operator environments by means of accessing a publicly facing server. And the last one, the Lebanese CEDA, another APT, Advanced Persistent Threat Group, this time linked to Hezbollah, they were able to breach the IT environments of a number of telcos, including Etisalat, Vodafone Egypt, Mobile, again, looking out for customer data, accessing that customer data. And again, the attack vector there wasn't the telecom infrastructure. It was unpatched Atlassian and Oracle servers. So I think, all of these breaches are serious breaches. None of them was directed at the telecom infrastructure. They all accessed customer data, but not via the telecom infrastructure.
So, Patrick, you gave some great examples there. What would be the actual impact of these attacks on the service providers and their customers? What did you see?
So let's look first of all at Excellion, which is a vendor of content, firewall hardware and software for enterprises. That breach exploited a zero-day vulnerability discovered in its on-premises file transfer appliance. Now, Singtel, that was one of the victims of that, they actually reported publicly on the impact of that on them and their customers. And they referred to the access to the personally identifiable information, or the PII, of 129,000 of their customers. They referred to the compromise of the bank account details of 28 former Singtel employees, the credit card details of 45 staff of a corporate customer with Singtel lines. And the other thing, we know that Excellion victims of the Excellion breach have suffered extortion demands from attackers. We don't know if Singtel was indeed subject to that or not, but we do know that some folks were. If you then look at the SolarWinds effect, the Orion Enterprise software is network monitoring software. They used malware initially. They managed to embed malware into the SolarWinds code, which makes it a supply chain attack. Subsequent to that, they used further malware to gain further visibility into the victims' networks. As I said, Orion is network monitoring software, so you can only imagine the kind of visibility you get into an environment by accessing or breaching that software. Obviously, tremendous visibility into the victim's environment. We don't know exactly which telcos were affected by SolarWinds, but it's clear from FireEye's reporting that some were. If we then go to the soft cell attack, which, as I said, is believed to have been carried out by a Chinese advanced persistent threat actor, they were able, by using an initial landing post on a public-facing web server, to exfiltrate call detail records, CDRs. This is the holy grail of what telcos are not supposed to allow to be compromised. And they allowed that, a number of telcos, according to the security vendor that identified this, a number of telcos were compromised in that way. And this is incredibly important because I think in the telecom industry, we tend to focus very, very heavily, for example, on the risk posed by untrusted vendors. Many telcos now will not trust Huawei, for example. Now, if you want to take that perspective from a cybersecurity point of view, that's absolutely fine. But there is no point fulminating about the risk that's presented to your network and the security of your customer data if you're going to exclude Huawei on the one hand, but then not pay proper attention to defending against an attack like soft cell, which comes at you from the enterprise side of the house. You have to have both pieces protected properly. And then lastly, the Lebanese CEDA attack. No doubt at all that they got into these telco environments to snoop around. The security company that discovered it, I think, used the words, I'm going to use the exact words, one can assume that databases containing call records and private data of clients were accessed as well. So I think, those are four pretty substantial impacts, Stan.
Yeah, those are very good examples, Patrick. Why do you think there's not enough attention being paid here to this enterprise side security threat?
So I think there are the two aspects. One is, as I think I mentioned, the legacy, the history, the proud legacy, the proud history that telcos have of doing a terrific job of protecting data in transit. But where telcos are no better and no worse than other organizations on average is in protecting data at rest. And that's where cyber attackers are going after telcos as much as they are going after any other organization. I don't want to beat up on telcos too much, but certainly they're no better and no worse. And I think it's much more important for telcos to focus on what they're not good at rather than to continue to celebrate the tremendous achievements they have and continue to have in protecting data in transit.
So, Patrick, what would be your recommendations going forward for the service providers?
So I guess take protection of data at rest as seriously as you take protection of data in transit. That's absolutely phenomenal. Take an organization-wide view of security across those 4 domains that I mentioned. The telecom infrastructure domain is going to become, there's going to be more risk exposed there with the transition to 5G. Let's be clear, that's not a static environment, not by any means. There are new risks arising in the telecom infrastructure domain, but you have to take a contiguous view across the 4 technology domains. Where we've seen attackers very, very successful is they obtain an initial foothold in one domain and they move laterally within the organization into other domains. So you have to ensure that those seams between domains are tightly secured as part of a holistic view across the whole of the technology domain of a telco. And I guess the last thing would be to focus as much, if not more, on process as we do on technology. The trouble with a telecom operator is that, there's a lot of folks that love their technology out there. And, there's a lot of folks that are fired up and enthused by buying the latest XDR product or replacing their old XDR product with a new XDR product because they think it's got a better detection rate and all the rest of it, which is all fine and dandy. But fundamentally, you get as much, if not more, hardening of your security posture from mundane, basic things like patching updates, frequently patching, automating that as frequently as possible, introducing continuous monitoring of your environment, getting your staff across the organization fully on board with cybersecurity processes. Good cybersecurity is kind of dull. It's kind of tedious. It's not exciting. It's not brilliant. So I think that would be my recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Patrick. Appreciate you joining me here today, and just looking forward to catching up with you again.
Likewise,
shortly.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.